I haven't talked about the 60th anniversary in a while, and there is a reason for that. I kept being right about stuff, and I figured I'd better quit while I was ahead. That, and I could barely keep up with everything that was coming out without making this my full-time job, which is impossible at the moment. Maybe one day, but for now, you still have theories. I'm mostly here for sarcasm. But now the date is drawing nearer, and we have confirmation that Beat the Meep is indeed going to be in it, and the Honourable Neil Patrick Harris is indeed playing the Toymaker. And seeing as I did a dedicated video to Beat the Meep of all things, I guess I'd better do my job and give the Toymaker a mention as well. So, who is the Toymaker? What is he? Is he racist? I don't know, I'm white. This is the Celestial Toymaker explained. The Toymaker, also known as the Celestial Toymaker, also known as the Mandarin, is a character from the classic era of Doctor Who. He is an enigmatic and powerful being who delights in creating complex and often very deadly games and challenges for anyone he ensnares. To play his games is to play for your life, and the deck is often stacked against you, mostly because he's a sore loser and he rigs the games. Even if you do win, odds are he will destroy you anyway because he is just that much of a prick.
But I'm a bad loser, Doctor. I always destroy the destroyer.
The Toymaker's domain is a surreal realm filled with whimsical and treacherous elements, most of which look like they were borrowed from other BBC productions and filmed on the cheap. He is immensely powerful, once being observed by the Time Lords playing in a supernova, as a child would in a paddling pool. The laws of physics are nothing to him, as easily ignored as the rules of his games. He's one of many immortals, but his exact nature is a mystery. Some speculate that he is one of the Guardians, entities responsible for the time-space continuum or something. There's the White Guardian, he's a bastard. There's the Black Guardian, he's a bastard, but at least he's honest about it. And then the Toymaker would be the Crystal Guardian, the Supreme Bastard, who supposedly got bored of using his powers to create and destroy, and now uses them to fuck with people's lives instead. Personally, I approve. This is the usual life journey of an immortal in possession of supreme cosmic power. They spend a little bit of time doing their jobs, succumb to the crushing boredom of eternity, and then take up a hobby. Some knit, some garden, some set themselves up as gods and make entire civilizations fight each other for their amusement, get overthrown by those civilizations, and then become walking, talking personifications of mental disorder who walk in people's nightmares. Some construct Earth-inspired wooden boats and race them across the cosmos. One particular bloke spends his time annoying Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
He's back!
I don't need your fantasy women.
And then there's the Toymaker, who dresses as an offensive stereotype and subjects unwilling people to games and horrible fates. I think I should probably address the racist elephant in the room. Like, the fact that this character design is kind of sort of racist. I'm not going to pretend that I am any sort of an authority on this subject, because I'm not. I'm shockingly white. That's not to say that I am not allowed an opinion, just that my opinion will carry that bias. I don't have the lived experience of being an Asian person living in a mostly white society, but certain things are obvious. There's the clothes, the sneaky manipulative Asian stereotype, and the term celestial, which is an old-timey American slur for Asian people. This stuff isn't okay today, and it wasn't back then either. And when it shows up in older episodes of your favourite show, it can be very confronting, and it bloody well should be. Racial prejudice has been the driving force behind some of the most horrific events in human history. There is a reason why we take this stuff so seriously, but there's nothing wrong with enjoying media with this stuff in it, provided that you are willing to acknowledge that it does have problematic elements. I'm talking to you, older fans from every Facebook group who think that everyone under the age of 40 is trying to take away your favourite problematic television. I swear to you I'm not. My favourite Fourth Doctor episode is The Talons of Wang Chiang. It's a masterpiece of Victoriana where the Doctor gets to cosplay as Sherlock Holmes while solving a mystery reminiscent of the Jack the Ripper killings, involving a sentient puppet, a giant rat, a time-travelling Australian dictator from the future disguised as a Chinese god of abundance, my favourite companion Leela who racks a body count, and two of the best characters ever considered for their own TV spin-off but didn't get it, called Jago and Lightfoot, who actually have their own audio range now, which I can't afford. Thank you very much, Big Finish. It's also got all of the same problems as the Celestial Toymaker with yellow face thrown on top, so yeah.
The bird has flown. One of us is yellow.
I rank it among my top 10, but I am fully aware of the fact that it does have offensive stuff in it that would be offensive to a lot of people. The answer to problematic television isn't to censor it or to throw it into a big fire. The BBC has done that with enough of the show already. The answer is to acknowledge it, to understand why it's problematic, to talk about it, and listen to the issues that people have with it because they might have a perspective that you don't. There's no need to get defensive about it. Bigotry isn't always something that we do knowingly. Some people do, but for most of us, it's a result of biases and beliefs that are ingrained in us from an early age. From our surroundings, from the media that we consume, it's practically impossible to avoid. It's that entrenched. It doesn't matter if you have these biases. That doesn't make you a bigot. What matters is how you react when someone points it out to you? Do you listen to what they have to say, reflect on how you think about other people? Do you welcome the opportunity to improve your understanding and see things from a different perspective? Or do you dig your heels in, take it as a personal insult, and get mad? Now that I have successfully pissed off half of my audience, let's continue. The Celestial Toymaker makes his first and only on-screen appearance in the first Doctor serial, The Celestial Toymaker, which came out in 1966. The Doctor and his companions Stephen and Dodo find themselves trapped in the Toymaker's realm, the Celestial Toy Room. But this isn't the first time that the Doctor's been here. It's revealed in the serial that the Doctor has met the Toymaker before. While studying in the Prodonian Academy as a kid, him and his mates Roland and Millennia learn about the Toymaker from studying the databanks, where he's described as a vague legend. Curiosity getting the better of them, they decide to take a cheeky trip in a stolen TARDIS to the Celestial Toy Room, where they discovered him dormant, but very real. He possessed Roland, stealing his body, and turned Millennia into one of his living toys. The Doctor, on one of his first trips ever, doomed his companions to a fate worse than death, but the Toymaker sees promise in him, knowing that he would make a much better opponent with some time to mature, so the Doctor is allowed to escape. Now he has him again and he wants a rematch, so he forces the Doctor to play against him in a trilogic game, the final move of which will destroy him and everything in the toy room, as the Toymaker is growing bored and wants to start over, while Stephen and Dodo are tossed into the depths of the toy room to play games for their lives against hordes of the Toymaker's previous victims, potentially inspiring the Deep Space Nine episode Come Along Home, where some of the characters get trapped in a board game where they're forced to play childish games by some Joe Dirt-looking bastards whose entire culture revolves around playing games.
We're always getting people trapped inside of games! Stop trapping people inside of games!
Actually, you know what? I'm calling it. The game is even a triangle. Come Along Home was inspired by the Celestial Toymaker. Now you know who to blame, Star Trek fans. The serial The Celestial Toymaker sounds amazing, and it probably would be if I was able to watch it. But unfortunately, it's one of the many Doctor Who stories that fell victim to the BBC's junking-based storage system, with only the 4th episode escaping the dustbin of history. There is a complete audio track, like there is for all the missing episodes, and a whole heap of telesnaps that loose cannon made into a reconstruction, but it's borderline unwatchable. This serial really did need the visuals in order to work, which is one of the greatest tragedies of the BBC's many crimes against culture. In this iteration, the Toymaker is played by Michael Gough, who you may know as Alfred Pennyworth from the Tim Burton Batman movies. It was made on a budget, they reused a lot of props from other BBC productions, and even the Toymaker costume was reused from the serial Marco Polo, which was also thrown into a giant fire. And this was the only time he shows up in the show. But he faces the Doctor multiple times in the extended media. I'm going to go through this chronologically from the perspective of the Toymaker himself, so it's going to be jumping all over the Doctor's timeline, so yeah, get ready for that. In the comic relative dimensions, the Toymaker ensnares the 12th Doctor and Clara into his web, as he fears that his toy room is becoming old and breaking down. To save it, he plans to steal the Doctor's TARDIS, which the Doctor allows before accessing the console room and ejecting the toy room into the vortex, with the Toymaker trapped inside. Another lonely god stuck in his box. Next, the Toymaker goes up against the 5th Doctor in the novel Divided Loyalties, where the Doctor, Adric, Nyssa and Tegan are on a mission to finally rescue the Doctor's friend Roland from the Toymaker's control. But the thing is, the Doctor's been had. It's all part of a complex plot to turn his companions against him and to steal the Doctor's body, as Roland's is wearing a little bit thin. The Toymaker is foiled when Roland saves the day by forcing himself to undergo several consecutive regenerations, expelling the Toymaker from his body and leaving him to lick his wounds in Blackpool, where he discovers video games while his toy room repairs itself. Here we come into lost episode territory. Scripts that were going to be episodes of the show, but for one reason or another never made the cut. The Nightmare Fair was going to be the first episode of season 23, featuring the 6th Doctor and Perry, until the higher-ups of the BBC attempted to cancel the show, failed, and then settled for putting it on hiatus for a while. They had already scoured locations, booked filming dates, but this episode and the rest of season 23 were thrown in the bin in favour of the Trial of the Time Lord arc. It did get a novelisation in 1989, and later an audio adaptation by Big Finish, which is the best possible way to experience this episode. Big Finish has an entire range devoted to lost episodes. They've got a 2nd Doctor set on Mars, where we learn the origin of the Ice Warriors, and I get the phrase that I utter every morning before I reach for my coffee. So basically, the Nightmare Fair goes like this. 6, after having put Perry through some seriously traumatic shit, this is my favourite Doctor I'm talking about, decided to take her on holiday to the funnest and most relaxing place he can think of. Then he decides to take her to Blackpool, where they discover the Toymaker holed up in a thrill ride in Space Mountain, where he's manufactured deadly video arcade games, which are set to release worldwide. The Doctor manages to defeat him, but to find out how, you'll have to give it a listen because it's actually pretty good. The one criticism I have, however, is that they explain the origin of the Toymaker, which kind of ruins it for me. That which remains unsaid and unimaginable can be far more impressive than anything you could show or tell the audience. It's given the Toymaker a Lovecraftian quality for me, which makes him less impressive the more that I learn about him. And the origin that they chose overall isn't very good. Yeah, it just ruins it. Anyway, he escapes old 60s trap and does some stuff with the 8th Doctor in the comics, which I am going to skip over. And we meet him again in Big Finish in the Companion Chronicles range. I haven't really talked about the Companion Chronicles that much. They're sort of semi-audiobooks from the perspective of one of the companions. They were brought in as a way of getting some of the older companion actors involved without making them have to throw their voices to make them sound like they're younger for the full cast audios. Katie Manning, who played Jo Grant, can attest to how difficult this is when she was doing the 3rd Doctor box sets. So they ended up giving her a box set with the 3rd Doctor where she plays an older version of Jo just to give her a bit of a break. So, Solitaire. It takes place during the Charlie arc. I skipped over it in my 8th Doctor guide videos mostly because I want to make them as accessible as possible to new listeners. If I were to throw in every Companion Chronicle and new box set that gets released, the 8th Doctor's earlier era becomes very convoluted, it looks inaccessible, and prohibitively expensive. Maybe I'll give them their own videos eventually, but anyway. The Doctor is a dummy. Charlie is trapped in the Celestial Toymaker's Celestial Toy Shop, and the Toymaker wants her to play a game. The biggest game in town! But she's not allowed to know the rules. Any wrong move or attempt to cheat, and the shop will shrink, until she wins or is crushed to death. She points out that if the Toymaker is also in the shop, he will also be crushed, but being immortal and ethereal death is only a minor inconvenience for him, as he could always find another body. And she has no help from the Doctor. This just goes to show how capable Charlie is as a companion and as a character. You can see why she is in such high standing among super nerds like myself. In fact, I would even say that she could easily hold her own series as the lead heroine. And she does. After this, the Toymaker winds up running into the 7th Doctor in the audio magic mousetrap. 7 being the 7th Doctor, who tricked Davros into destroying Skaro and never fought in the Time War because he would have won easily and saved everyone else the bother, ends up defeating him easily. When the Toymaker traps 7 and his companions Ace and Hex in his domain, the 7th Doctor leads a rebellion of the Toymaker's victims to defeat him. After doing so, he traps his essence into a doll. Each of them eat a piece of the doll, absorbing the essence, keeping the fragments of the Toymaker under control in their minds until he could wither away and die forever. Unfortunately, this plan involved the Doctor forgetting that he even made the plan in the first place, so he naturally figures it all out easily and messes it up for everyone. Can't say much more about this one, it's good, give it a listen. And that brings us to now. The Toymaker is back, and he seems to have dropped the racial insensitivities in favour for every aesthetic ever, which is just grand. I have my own personal headcanon for this. The Asian getup is an intentional attempt to appear like a caricature of humanity, in order to mock his human victims and put them on edge. The most populous countries in the world are in Asia, so he picks something from Asia, not realising that to 2 people from the future, he just looks like he's being an arsehole. Now he seems to have fine-tuned it a bit more, going for a variety of aesthetics. Now he's camp, theatrical, terrifying, a born showman, playing to all of Neil Patrick Harris's strengths, and I honestly cannot wait. But what do you think? Do you like the Toymaker? Do you hate him? Whatever you think, leave something in the comments. Let's talk about it. Also, a huge thanks to my friend Persephone for helping me not get cancelled. That was a really huge help. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell to get notified every time I release a new video, which I do very occasionally. All the usual YouTube spiel. Do all that, and I will see you in the next one.